everyone, welcome once again to the vast and ominous comic book vault. It's time for new acquisitions. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
Dan, we got a ton of books to review this week. It's kind of...
That is an understatement.
It is a massive week. I'd love to say rapid fire. I don't know if we're capable of that, but we're going to go as quickly as humanly possible. We're going to review some books for you right now. Dan's got more than me, so periodically Dan's going to take over the show and tell me to stop talking, and he's going to review some books. And I've got one thing Dan didn't read, but we're going to start off right now with IDW, and we're going to talk about Star Trek Countdown to Darkness number 3. So,
photo cover.
Yeah, Dan got the generic photo cover. I got the cool one, which is honestly somewhat of a moot point because this book is not that good. What did you think of this one, Dan?
I was just sort of confused where they were going with this. Like, they seemed like they were setting up Robert April to be this really sympathetic, mentor character for Kirk, which I thought initially was sort of a weird thing to do because I thought that's what Pike was supposed to be in the movies anyway.
Yeah.
And then they totally turn that on its head, sort of, and they make it this whole, like, Cold War thing with the Klingons, and he's like, oh, I wanted you to help me because this race that is being genocided, if I just told you that, if I only gave you that information, you might help me, even though it violates the Prime Directive. And I was like, now that you've identified that this is a Klingon attempt to, like, have a colony so they can take on the Federation, wouldn't they be more likely to help you?
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of weird.
It would kind of be in their best interest.
He steals the ship and stuff, that he's going to cause, like, a conflict with the Klingons and maybe start an intergalactic war, but that's not the way you always have to go about it either.
No, and then it just becomes another generic, evil captain takes over the ship plot, and I didn't really need that. There were a couple things that just, really rubbed me the wrong way in this. One of them was that they had to contrive this way for Robert April to take over the ship when he used to command a previous Enterprise. And he had this whole fail-safe thing built in so that only he would be able to command the ship and command the computer systems if anything went wrong. And he just hoped that when the new ship got built, that they would build his old fail-safe into it just because he put that into the mechanics, which is kind of goofy in the first place. Here's the thing, okay? In the original continuity, Robert April commanded the same Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first captain of the Starship Enterprise. Now, this is still the Constitution-class Enterprise. It's not in CC 1701A. It's still just the Enterprise. I don't know why or how there's a previous Enterprise, unless he commanded in one of the NXs or something, but he'd be a lot older if he did that. I don't understand. And so my whole point is, I thought it was goofy in the first place that they just made up this it seems arbitrary. It seems for no good reason. He didn't command this Enterprise; it's a different one, and now it makes the plot worse because they have to contrive this thing where if it was the same ship, that would make more sense, right? Where it's like, well, I built in this failsafe, nobody ever found it, Why? What's that about? So it's really clunky. I think it's really sloppy storytelling.
Yeah. Just in general, some of the things that they were doing with the characters rubbed me the wrong way, as you were talking about with the April thing. The fact that Scotty doesn't get command of the ship and they give command to the physician, the doctor, instead, like a guy that has no business or no knowledge about commanding a starship, and that's the first guy you go to. Like, I know that we're trying to make this feel more like original series, and McCoy is a main character in that show where he hasn't been in the first movie, and I don't know if that'll change with the second one. But it just seems like they were just trying to contrive something for McCoy to do and, like, have him say lines, because up until this point he was sort of just standing in the background like everybody else.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because Scotty is next in line. You've seen enough TOS. Scotty takes over the ship a lot. In the original series.
Even if they wanted to change that, like, that Scotty isn't the guy to take over the ship, it doesn't make sense to command to a doctor.
not when somebody else that would outrank the Doctor most of the time. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, it's bizarre. I don't know why they did that. And then McCoy's got that goofy line where he's like, well, since I'm in charge, if I wanted to, could I just take the ship back to Earth? Yeah, sure, you could, but you shouldn't do that. I just wanted to make sure it was an option. Like, it was really silly.
Plus, we've been doing that in we're doing it in the new movie coming up and in the previous movie anyway. So it's not like we to spend any more time there.
There was something I really wanted to bring up last time we talked about Countdown to Darkness that I didn't get to talk about because it was kind of a reveal, and now it's at the beginning of this, so I can mention it. We've got a woman calling herself Mud. So Harry Mudd was a recurring character in the original series, and now Mudd is a woman and looks Bajoran because she's got the nose wrinkles, and there's even a line where she mentions that she's from like the outer reaches of space, and Bajor is on the cusp between the Alpha and the Gamma Quadrant. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, the Alpha and the Beta Quadrant. Like Deep Space Nine. It's a space station in deep space, and Bajor is right on the cusp there. So like, I think she maybe is Bajoran. Why is she called Mud? How did Nero going back in time turn Mud into a Bajoran woman? I don't understand. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm making this sound worse than it is. The art's fantastic.
I did like the art. I just noticed a few times that Kirk's face from panel to panel would look completely different. Like, sometimes it would look like Chris Pine, and other times it wouldn't look like him at all. And that sort of took me out of the story a little bit at times.
Okay.
One of the other little things I wanted to mention about the writing before we moved on,
sure,
character-wise, was the fact that they feel the need to line drop Wrath of Khan in here and to beat us over the head again with the Spock has emotions, but he just rationalizes that with logic thing. And that sort of rubbed me the wrong way, being Spock's the reason I like this Star Trek thing so much. And I loved the subtlety of that internal struggle that he had. And it's not there at all in these films, and I guess maybe that's a problem with the first film and how it was handled and written in there. But if you've seen the first movie and are excited for the second one, I feel like beating people over the head with it again in a comic book that most people aren't going to read anyway is sort of a moot point, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm glad they're getting Klingons in there, mostly because it tells me we might get Klingons in the movie, and I'm kind of hoping for that.
Yeah.
But and so I like that we're doing that kind of traditional TOS. Hey, we might go to war with the Klingons. I mean, I'm glad that's in there, but I wish it was the whole story because we just set it up at the end of the third part of a 4-part story. So like.
Yeah.
I don't think I can recommend this one, honestly. I was sort of excited from the first issue. I thought it was pretty good, and it's going downhill for me. So, unfortunate.
I'd have to say the same thing. Like, the first issue had me really excited because, like you had said, it had a really nice TOS feel to it where they were just going out and exploring planets, and you had the usual character dynamics with Kirk and Spock at least going on, which was fun. But, yeah, I agree with you. I can't really recommend this one either, unfortunately.
What's next, Dan?
The next book I have, Captain Logan didn't get this one. I'm just going to be talking about this one by myself. This Star Wars Legacy #1, Volume 2 of Star Wars Legacy began this week. This one's by Pacheco, Karina, and Gabriel Hardman. Hardman does the art, and I believe this is his wife that he co-writes with. They've been doing critically acclaimed work over at the Planet of the Apes books at Boom, which I really wanted to check out. I like the first Planet of the Apes film, but it's not the sort of thing where I need to be reading it, so it's one of those things I'm probably going to track down and trade eventually. But I picked up this book because I had been hearing a lot about, they've been doing some really cool political intrigue stuff in the Apes books, and this book focuses on Han and Leia's descendant, and I had heard an interview with them where they were sort of talking about how they were going to blend those two characters together and make it a political intrigue and smuggler sort of story. And that definitely was delivered here with the first issue. I was really impressed with how great the artwork looked. Hardman's not an artist that I've read a ton of his work, but I know from what I've seen he's a great artist. But here the art was fantastic and invokes Star Wars in that kind of like dirty smuggler used world kind of way, and I like that a lot about it. The story so far, it's starting kind of slow, but You don't really get into the characters' heads too much. There's a lot of mystery. It's a pretty competent Star Wars story, I'd have to say. It feels much more like Star Wars than some of the other Star Wars comics I've read, and it's got a lot of cool political things in here. Just seeing the Star Wars universe in a radically different place, I think, is a cool thing. So if you want to see Star Wars that's a little bit different than what you've come to expect, I'd recommend this one. It's pretty good.
You know, it was kind of fun back in the day when, like, I did Star Trek and Dan did Star Wars, and then I had to go off and get Dan interested in TOS, and now he's buying Star Trek. And I like Star Wars, and I've been reading a little bit of that other Star Wars book that you've been doing, but I'm not, like, buying everything Star Wars, so I'm sort of like, oh, I don't even get my Star thing now. Like, Dan, but it's awesome that you're actually liking Star Trek now. Now let's go on to Ninja Turtles number 20.
Which cover did you get? Did you get the Eastman one or the regular one?
I got the better cover, Dan. That
I
one's
actually
neat.
like that cover better.
That one's
like
neat,
this one too.
but this one has Krang holding all 4 of the masks, and that's
really cool
just really cool. You know, I picked this up and I didn't even notice that until I read through it, and then I looked at the cover again and I went, wait a minute, he's holding the masks. That's so cool. So this is just like crazy off-the-wall, non-stop action all the way through, finishing off the whole Dimension X Neutrino arc, and it's really fun getting to see Krang actually fight. Like, you know, the Ninja Turtles just finally met Krang face to face a couple issues ago, and already they're actually like going toe to toe with him. I love that they went as far as they did with this. This is so over the top, and it doesn't suddenly feel like a new book either. It's not like, oh well, you just suddenly got really really cartoony with it. Like there's still wonderful character moments for people. I really like that conversation that Donatello has with the Fugitoid, speculating.
My favorite part of the issue.
Really cool, speculating about how how they've lived this long and how the whole reincarnation thing works, and trying to bring it down to some kind of a science level, but then ultimately they realize that it's kind of more of a faith thing because they just can't prove what happened, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that we're getting the Turtles. I noticed specifically with this issue that it's becoming obvious, but not in a bad way, that Eastman and Waltz are going towards traditional Turtles status quo, and these 20 issues have been sort of getting them there, where, like, Donatello in the cartoon, like, invented all these wacky sci-fi inventions that, like, don't make any logical sense, but because he, like, believed in himself, I guess, he was able to build them. It was just sort of like a thing you take on faith, like, oh yeah, this is Donatello, he's going to be able to build that. And we have a Donatello here who's much more grounded in the way he thinks about things, and getting his mind sort of out of the little box that he's in. I think we're going to see him do more of that wacky sci-fi stuff like we had him doing in here, and then we had the thing set up at the end here with Krang talking about getting a new army, which I assume is going to be the Foot Clan when he teams up with Shredder eventually.
I would assume
with
so
the
too,
Technodrome.
yeah.
And I was like, that's really cool that they're setting up the 80s cartoon status quo, but doing it seriously.
You know, I'm really excited about that. I want the Technodrome to be built. I'm going to be upset if they stop it. And I don't think that they'll stop it, but Baxter Stockman had a line a couple issues ago where he mentioned that it was going to take like another 5 years to build it or something. If I'm remembering right. So I'm wondering how they're going to finally get all that in there. But, like, I predicted a long time ago that this whole, like, 3-pronged rivalry would turn into a 2-pronged rivalry. That Krang and Shredder would eventually team up and then they'd get it closer to status quo. And you're right, it looks like that's just where they're taking it. And then, you know, we've got April and Casey getting a lot closer to actually dating. And, like all of these things, we're getting closer and closer to what you know. But, like, we're seeing the beginnings of it. But it also doesn't just feel straight up origin. Like, there's real story being told while we're getting there.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I think this arc, more so than any of the other ones, it seems like they're making a conscious effort to make all of the Turtles 3-dimensional characters and give them their due. Like, I felt like before, especially, I mean, obviously with all the Turtles things before, we had Leonardo and Raphael character pieces, and then Donatello and Michelangelo were just kind of there to build gadgets and be comic relief. Well, I felt like this arc and the ending of here specifically, where we have Michelangelo getting what he wanted in the end from the princess, where she kind of likes him at the end. They don't really start dating or anything, but she gives him a kiss, and you just said he was brave and everything, and it's a nice little character thing for him, where he's like realizing that he can be competent and still be sort of the funny guy at the same time. He doesn't just have to be a goofball and fail all the time for comic relief. I thought it was nice that we're giving Michelangelo something to do.
Yeah, and you're talking about Donatello earlier. I feel like part of his growing up is becoming less cynical, which I really like. It's like being like so grounded makes him a little bit cynical, and he's like maybe too extreme in his science, where like maybe there's more of a middle road there, that kind of thing. I feel like this arc has been mostly about, weirdly, those two. It's been mostly a Donatello Michelangelo arc, which is a little bit unusual. And then it's about politics. Then it's about your big giant grandiose kind of space politics. If you got the neutrinos trying to be taken over by Krang, and Krang wanted to destroy the Earth and then make it his new planet and all that stuff. So the Turtles are kind of, what I like is the Turtles are kind of thrown in the middle of somebody else's business, but it's still about them, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, it is. I had read the old Mirage comics where this sort of same thing happens, where they go to a different planet and they're interacting with aliens and things, and I didn't really care for it too much, to be honest. I've always preferred the Turtles a little bit more in the grounded street level ninja stuff. That's what I always liked from the Turtles, and when I saw that they were going here with this, I wasn't initially too excited, but I figured I'd trust them, and they've done a good job of making this feel like it mattered, because the Turtles feel some sort of kinship with these people, because they're sort of outcasts, and they're not like the normal thing within their society where like Krang is trying to take over and all that sort of thing. I thought paralleling them in that way made these characters a lot more relatable to the characters that we're supposed to care about. So through that connection, I was able to care about them a little bit more. Whereas they're not just like random aliens like in the Star Trek book, where you're like, oh, random aliens being killed, I'm supposed to care about them. Like, I actually cared about these people.
Yeah, and I feel like they and the Turtles are supposed to have somewhat similar philosophies, where like they would like to be pacifists, but then they have times that they have to defend themselves or defend what they believe in or whatever. And so like the neutrinos, I mean, think about their name, neutral, like they should be pacific. And in the cartoon show, that's what they were. They were all about being pacifists. Mm-hmm. And in this, they've got guns. There's a letter in the letters pages where somebody complains that they've got guns because they're supposed to be pacifists. And but like there actually is a lot of talk from the Fugitoid, because he used to be a neutrino, about how like he is a pacifist and he refuses to do anything that actually like with real weapons. So he creates that thing that actually disarms people. And so. But then with the Turtles, I feel like Splinter kind of races them the same way, where they're not supposed to just go attack things, but they carry weapons and they know how to use them, and sometimes they are forced into having to use them, and so it's sort of like this realistic thing where they're not too idealistic about it, or at least that's the way that it's presented. So
right, it's a self-defense thing, definitely, like the whole ninja code. That's a very good point. I hadn't even thought of it that way, but yeah, definitely.
Thank the guy from the letters page, because that's what made me start thinking about all that pacifism stuff. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention artwork-wise, I think this is one of this artist's strongest issues on the book so far. I loved all the action here. I thought the Turtles themselves looked better than they had in some of the other issues, but I am excited, however, because in the back of the letters pages, they did say that the guy who's doing the Foot Clan book is going to be doing the regular art after Eastman does the issue by himself next issue.
You and I have said nothing but good things about him and his art. I guess we'll go ahead and get on to this other book, but yeah, his art is just so different from anything I've ever seen. And
it works really well for the Japanese influenced Turtles things, I think.
Yeah. I can't wait to see that. That's cool. Well, do you want to go ahead and move on? I think we're both recommending this one. So Ninja Turtles, A Secret History of the Foot Clan, number 4.
How cool is it that that looks exactly like Krang from the 80s cartoon. I think that's really cool.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. It totally does. You were talking about the artist on this book. Who is the artist on this book?
That's Mateus Santaluco.
Mateus Santaluco, yeah. Santaluco draws the most cool, like the coolest looking Shredder I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. Even with just the way he draws people's faces, I think he's very expressive and he has this like aged look to all of his characters where all the lines in their faces are very defined, and I think that works really well for the whole Japanese vibe of this book where they're like going back to ancient times and flashbacking and things like that. It just invokes a sort of like ancient feel for me. I don't know if that's just in the way that he draws people's faces, but there's something like angular about this that reminds me of Japanese culture, and I really like that about it.
And everybody's so expressive. Like, you don't need a bunch of narration boxes telling you what people are doing because you can just read it in their faces.
Oh yeah, and I love the fact that we finally get the Shredder's entire origin here, and we get to sort of figure out how that happened, but not completely, because there's things in here. And in issue 20, when we were talking about that conversation that Donatello has with the Fugitoid, where it's like, we're not really sure how much is magic and how much is fantasy and where that line ends. I thought that's the most fascinating thing about this book for me.
Yeah, me too. And I don't want to give away too much in case people haven't read this yet or want to read it. But
yeah,
I mean,
for
like
sure, definitely.
the giveaway at the end. Well, let me just say that like you see this on the cover. Krang is involved, and that's crazy. When I looked at this cover, I went, "Wait, Krang's going to be in this? Suddenly, somehow, having to do with all of that?" Because the thing is, you look at the cover, and I studied this cover before I opened the issue because I went, "Wait a minute, that's not Krang looking at the Turtles or at anybody like in the that's Krang looking at Shredder." And a girl from Period, what? So, like, that's really interesting. You know, I mean, from feudal Japan, I'm like, wait, what? How does that work? That's
and that
in there.
gives great precedence for the fact that Krang will eventually use the Foot Clan as his army alongside the Shredder later.
Yeah, and I love how, and I'm not giving too much away because this goes all the way back to the first issue of this, but I love how the ooze is set up so early, and that it's not just this stuff that some scientist invented like recently, like it's the key to everything. That's
the secret of the ooze, if you will.
That's a bit, yeah, but the secret's way more interesting than the secret in that movie. Yeah, boy, if they called this that, it would make perfect sense. Oh yeah, secret history of the secret of the ooze. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what else to say about this book except that it's really. It's really informative. Again, if you're reading the regular book, you have to be reading this.
I don't see how, especially with the things that they were talking about in issue 20, and the things that we know are coming with that big event, City Fall, where this guy's going to be drawing it. I don't see how you could not read this book and get a full experience out of reading the ongoing book after that. And I'm not saying that in a bad way.
Me neither.
By any stretch of the imagination, because some people are going to groan and say, "Oh, I have to read supplementary books to understand the ongoing." But it's not that you have to understand it, but I think you'll have a much richer experience. If you read this.
I wouldn't treat it like a supplemental book. I would treat it like for 2 months it double shipped. Because
that's a good point, because this very well could have been in the main book.
Yeah, it's that important, and what I really love when you have supplemental stuff like this. And this is rare. And I think that this has been the case with all of their supplementary stuff.
It has been.
All of it. They're not trying to sell you extra books you don't need. They've got too much story to tell for the main book. What they're doing is they're saying, look, we only make this book once a month. We've got too much to do, and if we only did one book a month, we'd never get there. It'd take you forever. I'm really glad that it only took us 20 issues to get where we are here, because boy, those first 6 or 7, I thought we were moving so slow. Like it took so long to finally get to Shredder, and it took so long before the Turtles even like found Raphael again, and I was like, how slow was Molasses? What, is Bendis writing this book? I mean, I was like, how slow is Molasses are we going to take? Nothing against Bendis, he's great right now, but how slow is Molasses are we gonna go with this book? Well, in fact, I guess I am still making fun of Bendis. Where we get here versus where we get here, It's like night and day. You know what I mean? Like I'm so excited that they chose to put out as many of these as they did, and that it's worth buying them all. It really.
Yeah, I mean, that's the original reason why supplementary books existed, right? Like, if you launched another ongoing series for a character, it was like, we have so much story that we want to tell month to month that we need more space to do it. And that's definitely the case with this book. I highly recommend this one. I think you could even read this series by itself and get a good amount of enjoyment out of it, just because it's a really fun turtle story, and if you're a Shredder fan, like, this is the book to read. And if you're a Turtles fan, how could you not be a Shredder fan, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I gotta say, I feel really bad for that historian guy.
Oh, Miller, yeah.
Yeah, oof, man, I feel bad for that guy. Again, I don't want to give anything away, but, like, he ended up in a different place at the end of this than I thought he would, and I was like, oh man, he and Baxter Stockman, both of them, I never feel great for those guys.
I know, it's like the impending doom thing with Baxter Stockman. Like, whenever that character shows up, you're like, when is he going to get screwed over?
Yeah, he's either going to get turned into a fly or lose limbs, but something's going to happen to him.
Oh, and I wouldn't put it past these guys. I think he's going to be a fly.
I hope so. I really want to see that. You know, they've been able to make all that cartoon stuff work so much. I want to see them go all the way and do all that crazy stuff. Maybe not as far as some of the technology. Like, I don't think I need a turtle blimp in this series, but like, but like, you know, I'd like to see. I'd like to see some more of those crazy mutants. You know, Bebop and Rocksteady were set up in the second or third issue. I'd like to see them actually be with the Shredder. I bet that happens. I'm sure they're going to go there.
Yeah, I mean, there's little things in this issue in 20 to suggest that with what Karai has been up to, so...
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, and how cool, again, I don't want to give it away, but I'm not even going to show it. How cool was that panel where she's carrying what you know she's carrying?
It was very cool.
Let's move on, shall we? Have you got something else?
The next book is Captain America?
Yeah, Captain America.
Captain America, this is by Rick Remender and John Romita Jr., and this continues the Dimension Z story where Cap has been trapped there. He has a son that was genetically engineered by Aram Zola that he took from him and sort of took him under his wing and has raised him. He's been there for like 5 years. There was a time gap with the issues and the kid grew up, so he's a little bit older now. This is sort of Cap at his lowest point possible. We see him almost lose faith in... I think it's interesting seeing him in a place that's not the present-day world because he doesn't have his country to believe in anymore, where he's just sort of trapped in this dimension that's ruled by this, like, really evil dictator that doesn't, like, have any compassion for human life whatsoever. And he doesn't have his country to believe in anymore. The ideals, everyone around him is sort of gone, so he doesn't really have anyone that he can confide in besides this little kid. And it makes a really great case for Captain America as a person, where you see, like, bring him down to his lowest point. He's able to get back up on his legs again and come back, where he has no faith. His body's been broken. His body's almost out of his control, and he's still able to conquer it. He's that strong of a person. And Remender has given us things in flashbacks going all the way back to the Great Depression America, justifying that. So it doesn't feel like, you know, oh, he's just doing that because it's Captain America. You feel like you've been, you know, growing up with this kid to some capacity, and you see him, like, in his early days, and you see him become this great man, and it's really interesting stuff when you parallel that with him raising a kid himself. And I think it makes a good case for Cap having a sidekick, actually. I'm not a big Captain America fan, so I haven't read, like, you know, the stuff where he has any of the Buckies or the Falcons or any of those characters. So I've just been reading Captain America, like, by himself, and Brubaker was on it. But I actually really like him with a sidekick here. It's really cool stuff. Overall, if you're a Cap fan, I think you might like this. The artwork, again, is still a little bit rough. It's not John Romita Jr.'s best work. I think he's getting a little bit older. So just by nature of, you know, people, when they get older, their hands aren't as, you know, steady in their drawing and things, and he has to get things out on time. I understand that. So the artwork looks a little bit rough in places, rougher than I would like it to, but it's John Romita Jr., you know, it's not artwork to turn your nose up at. So I recommend this one. It's pretty good.
Next up, let's jump over to... I'm going to catch up on that book. I'm just not caught up yet. Next up, let's jump over to Ultimate Comics All New Spider-Man number 21, Venom War. It's really funny that we've got a heading on this book like it's a big event or something, because
I thought it was really weird and kind of stupid.
It seems like just a regular arc to me. It's like if Venom or a symbiote, like when it's not, in 616, when it's not the current Venom, like, man, if it's a symbiote, we've got to have a banner now. It's really bizarre. I don't know what that's about, but anyway, so like, we've got just Venom is the bad guy right now, so we've got this banner. And last issue we had Venom, attack Spider-Man at his house, and there's this, and then his dad got hurt, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
I have to ask you a question about his dad.
What do you think of this? Yeah,
it's just a name thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, was his name always the name of the president of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis? Or did they just change that during that United We Stand thing? Because I don't remember it being that.
No,
before.
I think it was. I think the deal was we didn't hear his last name very often because Miles' last name is Morales.
So is that not his real dad or something?
Wait, now why do they have different last names?
Yeah, that's what I was sort of confused about. Like, maybe Bendis is going somewhere with that. I have no idea. I just thought
I don't know.
I just thought it was an interesting name choice, naming him Jefferson Davis.
Maybe one of our viewers can tell us what that's about. I'm not gonna. I thought it was actually his real dad, but maybe I'm forgetting something just because it's been so long since the beginning of this now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in the first couple issues that was the assumption I made because they had such a close relationship. They referred to each other as father and son. The mother did too. So I don't know. Maybe he's not. I don't know. That would be an interesting twist if they go there. But
So the idea that we had before was that Venom I thought he knew who Spider-Man was, and that it was Jefferson Davis, that it was that guy. And now, because of what just happened, we're getting more and more of the sense that maybe Venom is going to actually figure out who the real Spider-Man is. And most of this is a conversation with Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane and Miles Morales. What'd you think of that?
I thought it was pretty good stuff. It's a Bendis dialogue scene. It's always gonna tell you something about the characters and get them to, to say things that are interesting.
Yeah.
I just don't think we're covering all that much ground in the issues that we're going here. I don't know. Maybe. This is a problem that people have been saying about Ultimate Spider-Man since the beginning, and I have never really experienced this because I read most of it in trade and then jumped on it when they relaunched it the first time. And it moved slow, but I don't know, it didn't feel to me to be as slow as this. I feel like we're still, 21 issues later, still, Miles Morales is figuring out how to be Spider-Man, and it's not really anything else. Like, it's just sort of him, like, figuring out how to, use his powers properly and deal with the whole thing with, like, having a secret identity and all that sort of thing. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just because that we're retreading similar ground that we had already done before that it feels like it's moving so slow, and I'm getting kind of tired of it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, and I mean, I kind of felt like also there was quite a bit of just recap going on here for, like, because it's been so many years since a lot of what they're talking about here with the early Venom stuff that they've got to recap, like, what happened, how Gwen Stacy died and came back. They've got to recap. Like how Venom was created in the first place and how it had to do with Peter Parker's parents and like all of that in case you don't know. And honestly, I've read some of that. It was kind of nice to get that recap, but so much of the issue was that I felt a little bit let down by it. Like we just didn't cover enough ground. I feel like the only idea here that really permeated that was an interesting thing that should be explored more is the kind of like complicated nature of the responsibility of being a Spider-Man, where sometimes the responsible thing to do is to not act, he kind of deals with that a little bit, where like, well, I jumped right in when maybe what I should have done was grab Dad and escape. It's almost as if it's a comic book, so we have to have a big fight scene, and then he's going, well, wait, no, we don't. I'm a real person inside this comic book, and I should have grabbed my dad and swung off, And so and
that's an interesting idea to explore, because that's sort of flipped from the usual Spider-Man dynamic, where Peter Parker's always considering, like, maybe I shouldn't jump into this situation. It would make my life a whole lot better if I didn't, but I have to be responsible and I have to jump in anyway. And it's interesting that Miles, and especially Mary Jane and Gwen, are sort of like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have, you shouldn't be doing this because you don't really know what you're doing. But Peter didn't really either. He was just sort of winging it. He was just better at it, I guess.
Yeah, well, this idea that sometimes escape is the better option. I really like this kind of idea of his superpowers give him the ability to be more careful because of the power set he has. Sometimes it's not a matter of just beat up the bad guy. Sometimes, like, it's easier to escape the bad guy because of the powers that you have. And I mean, like, you know, in a lot of situations, it would be like, well, this guy's going to terrorize this neighborhood. Maybe I shouldn't do that. But this was a case where it's like, it's right in front of my house, and he's going after my dad specifically. That was the one thing I really took from it. But overall, I thought it was a lot slower than it should have been, and it didn't cover nearly enough ground.
Yeah, that's just how I feel about this series in general. Like, it's good. Like, whenever I pick up an issue, I find myself enjoying it. When I binge read these issues especially, that's when I find myself enjoying it the most. Like, if I'm, like, 4 issues behind or something, I'll read them all at once. I have a good time. But what I really sort of want from this book moving forward is, like, I want a status quo that not a static one, but we can arrive at one where, like, Miles is pretty... You know, he's got some villains, he's got a girlfriend, we can do some relationship stuff, because that's something that's missing from this book for me. Like, we're doing a Spider-Man book and he doesn't have a girlfriend yet, and we're 21 issues in.
He's also 13.
Well, I mean, like, maybe that's a problem with his age then.
But I'm just saying, I'm not sure that, me personally, I don't know if I could take it seriously enough to care. You know what I mean? Sometimes I have a hard enough time taking 16-year-olds seriously enough dating. You know what I mean? I mean, I realize you're younger than me, Dan, but like at 28 years old, looking back, a lot of the time I don't want to look at teenage relationships because I know most of those don't go anywhere anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
but I feel like Bendis does them well enough, like that you'd be able to buy it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's really good at writing teenage relationship stuff, and we're doing a Spider-Man book. I want to see him do that. I want to see him... Not that I want to see him cover the same ground relationship-wise that we did with Peter and Gwen and Peter and Mary Jane, but, like, Miles is a completely different character than Peter, and let's make the girlfriend a completely different character and see what happens. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
You're right about that. I'm with you. I want to get to a place where he can just have some adventures, and it doesn't have to all be...
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like this is 21 issues, this has been, like, set up for the status quo that's going to be Miles Morales Spider-Man.
And I think this guy needs to get a break here pretty soon. Like, so much gets thrown at him at his age. I would have put the costume up by now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he needs a break. He needs to get to enjoy being Spider-Man for a while. Because I feel like we've had at least 12, 13 issues where being Spider-Man sucks too much to be Spider-Man, you know what I mean? Especially after the Prowler stuff and all of that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he hasn't really had anything good happen to him other than being recognized by the Ultimates during that last arc, right? Like, that's the only good thing that's happened, I think.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess I will go on now real quick and, wait.
New Avengers?
Oh, do you have New Avengers? I'm sorry, you go ahead and do that. I forgot what the order was. Go ahead. You do that, and then I'll do mine. Go ahead.
Alright, I got New Avengers number 4. This is by Jonathan Hickman and Steve Epting. And as you can see, Galactus is in this issue.
Oh, God, I can't wait to read that. I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, this is pretty good stuff. This is the members of the Illuminati pretty much trying to solve this big cataclysmic problem that we've been dealing with for the first 3 issues, where there's these universes coming together, and somebody destroyed one of the alternate universes in the Marvel timeline, and now they're all sort of like prematurely dying, because eventually they're all going to come together, smash, and implode and die. Like, the universe will end. And somebody is furthering that along. They don't really know what's happening. They're all trying to figure it out. And this is basically all of the members of the team figuring out how to deal with that problem on their own and then coming together, which is really interesting. Like, you see how Reed Richards approaches the situation, and, like, from his scientific mind, how he would do things, and then Tony Stark does it from, like, an industrialist weapon builder's perspective. Doctor Strange goes into his Sanctum Sanctorum and finds this, like, spell that will, like, consume his soul if he uses it, and that's, like, the last option for him. So it's really interesting to seeing, like, all of them going to lengths that they normally wouldn't before because they're trying to save the universe. I really like that about it. This book has done a great job of taking the characters to these really dark and dirty places they don't really want to be in and seeing how they react. That's the interesting thing about this book for me. And we do get a little bit of visiting one of the alternate universes at the end, and we do see Galactus, which is cool, and it has a lot of future interesting implications as to what the ending of the universe will be, and if Galactus will be involved in it in some capacity. It's very cool stuff. So if you like, if you're not really enjoying the main Avengers book, this is like the wacky sci-fi plotting of that book, but with characterization, like things to latch onto. I don't know. Like, I haven't really been enjoying the main Avengers book because it's been very plot heavy, but this has
dropped it too.
Good balance of both. So I'd recommend this one.
One thing I think is really cool about that, having not looked at it yet, I need to catch up and then read that. One thing that I think is really cool about that is that it being the Illuminati and it being like universes are falling apart. It's a big giant plot you can do while all the other books are going on without anybody else knowing about it.
Exactly. Working from the shadows. That's what I think is so cool about it, because nobody Captain America was involved in the Illuminati before, and he opposed to what they were doing, so they were just like, all right, we're mind wiping you, you're not going to remember any of this, you're out.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's cool.
It's cool stuff. So
I'll go ahead and review Supergirl number 18. This is a really interesting cover. What kryptonite doesn't kill, it only makes stronger.
Oh, wow.
So this is a direct follow-up to the Hell arc, and what this does is it kind of deals with Supergirl's kryptonite poisoning that she got at the end of Hell on Earth. I couldn't remember the name of that arc. Hell on Earth. The end of Hell on Earth, she gets kryptonite poisoning, and really bad kryptonite poisoning. And here, she's being helped out by I think Proxima, somebody I don't know very well, and she gets sent to as close to the sun as she can be sent to, so that she can heal faster. But then she prematurely runs off, and she says, "Well, I'm just fine, no problem. I'll be able to deal with this." And so, of course, one of the things I've been loving about Supergirl in this is that she's so brash and she thinks she can do anything, and she's very she's so in over her head about everything, and it works because she's so angry about Krypton being destroyed that she's just super impulsive all the time, and she's been, not that she stayed static that way and that she hasn't learned some things along the way to be less that way, but now it's just sort of she's still got that personality where she's a little more careful to a degree, but then also when it just has to do with herself, she's like that person that wouldn't want to go to the doctor's office. You know what I mean? No, I'm just fine.
Yes,
Whatever. She's very stubborn about it, and I really like that. She doesn't see Earth as her home, and she hates having to be there, and so she's just constantly finding work to do to try to move past the fact that Krypton's destroyed. And remember that she thought she was going to be able to get Krypton back with Hell, but it turned out that Hell was, this crazy loon who wanted to destroy the Earth to do it, and she couldn't go along with that. Well, anyway, Hell went back in time anyway at the end of Hell on Earth, which is really, really interesting. He ended up kind of winning, sort of. He made it back, and we're finding out slowly that he changed some things, and
really?
We don't know what yet, and we're learning it, and Lex Luthor's caught on to this, and that's what's really cool. Lex is in this, and Lex is working with some evil friends of his while in prison. He's got this whole setup that none of the prison guards know about. There's this great spread where he is sitting out in a courtyard, and he's hooked up to this machine, and I don't know what they think this machine is exactly, but they're all or maybe they don't even know he's hooked up to a machine. I'm not sure, but anyway, they're all guarding him with pointing guns at him, and he's acting like he's just tanning, but he's actually talking to all these other evil masterminds for an hour.
It's awesome.
It's awesome, and he's kind of caught on to the fact that there's that something bad is going on with the whole with the end of Hell on Earth, and he's trying to solve it from prison.
See, that's one of the things I like about the return of Mad Science Lex Luthor, where you can do goofy things like that with him.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure exactly what his endgame is, but we've got that sort of like we don't really know what Lex's plans are thing going on, and then you got this other thing with Power Girl, or with this woman who I guess maybe is going to become Power Girl. I haven't been reading all of this, so I'm kind of lost as to where we are. But she has some weird connection to Supergirl, where whenever Supergirl gets sick, she gets sick, and they both kind of look really similar, and so we're not real sure what the deal is with that. Anyway, if I could sum this whole thing up in one word, it's intriguing, and I have to keep reading to find out more. I'm not sure what's going on, but I think I like it. Anyway,
it's pretty cool that it's a complete and utter flip of Superman's attitude about Earth. That sounds sort of interesting, where it's like, the immigrant that doesn't like the place they immigrate to.
Yeah, Mike Johnson's been on this for I think since the beginning. I think it's the same writer all the way through.
All right, cool, because I did read the first 6 issues of that, and I did like it.
And I loved it, yeah, and I kind of dropped off after that myself, and now I kind of want to go back and get the rest of it and read all the way up, because I've read the last 3, and it's just really solid. It's not genius, but it's exciting, and it's fun, and it's escapist, and I just like her a lot. Anyway, yeah, so...
Yeah, sometimes that's all you need, a fun book with a great character.
I never cared about Supergirl before, but now I'm just like, and I love her costume. I still love her costume. So...
Yeah, that is one of the few redesigned costumes that I thought looked pretty good.
It's pretty. Yeah, it's a really cool costume. I mean, I still don't like the fact that everybody's got some kind of armor, but just the basic design of it's really kind of nifty.
Right, the boots are interesting. I like that.
Yeah. Anyway, what's next, Dan?
I think Daredevil, right?
Yes, Daredevil number 24!
Come on.
What? Daredevil! So, Dan, what... We went there. What happens in this book, Dan?
Yes. What happened in this one?
Yeah, go ahead. Start us off.
Basically, what we have here is dealing with the fallout of last issue, where we found out that Foggy had cancer, and this is sort of Matt trying to make sense of that in his mind. He's doing everything he can to try to figure out a cure for Foggy. He's calling up Hank Pym, talking about it with him. He's reading books about it. And at the same time, we have that we have some scenes in here with him going back to the district attorney woman that he had been dating previously in the book and trying to rekindle his relationship with her, which Wade is so good at writing little scenes with characters that adds so much realism to the way people interact with each other. Like, Matt Murdock is one of those guys where, Karen Page was sort of, in the beginning, just an object of desire for a swashbuckling superhero, like the classic Robin Hood archetype thing. And we have a woman here who's very much her own person, very independent, doesn't want to be saved by a man. She wants to do things her way, and Matt's never really had that in a woman before, barring Elektra, right? So when he sees that in a woman, he's like, "Oh my God, I think I'm in love with her," in his head. And I thought that made me laugh out loud. I really enjoyed that scene.
I instantly liked her better after that. I mean, I really bought Matt kind of falling for her because of that. And I like that Wade is making a really good point here. I don't know if he's doing this on purpose, but that scene is, a lot of it is about how so many women that date superheroes in a lot of these stories, I feel like he was almost making a commentary about these sorts of love stories, where it's so often it's you got a love interest for a superhero who becomes too afraid for her own life because she's dating a superhero, and she's if anybody finds out what his secret identity is, then she's screwed. And I like that he almost makes this point that so often that story gets told and we pretend like it's the first time we've ever seen it before.
Yeah, that's the exact out they took with Mary Jane with One Moment in Time.
Yeah, and then here, she's like, no, that's not the problem. I just want to be my own person, and I don't want to be a second wheel. And I'm not saying that there's not validation to the other thing. People are going to be scared for their life if supervillains are attacking them, sure. But I like that Wade doesn't pretend like it's the first time that's ever been brought up, and he also doesn't pretend like it's the first time that point's ever been brought up either. You know, so I really appreciated that. He's not saying that there's not anything left to say. I think it's the opposite. It's like, there's still stuff to say with it. Let's just not pretend like it's the first time to try to impress people with, look, I'm doing this differently. You know, so that was cool.
Exactly. Wade, I think, has always and throughout all of his body of work, he has a very good sense of the fact that these characters have had so many stories told with them, the genre in general has had so many stories told with them. Let's take those archetypes and put new spins on them and try, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel completely. That's sort of his general mission statement when he comes on a superhero book, from what I've seen. And this has meshed so well with that formula, in that we have Daredevil things in here that before, like, I was honestly a little bit nervous about Wade coming onto this book when I heard it announced initially, because I'm such a big Miller person, and it's so steeped in that super serious street level, like, it takes itself super seriously, basically, and it's dark and it's cynical at points. It's inspiring when Matt, like, eventually wins in the end, but, like, in the moment, it's pretty depressing. and here we have, like, Matt Murdock fighting, like, irradiated dogs and things, and it's so over the top, it's so goofy, but I love it because Wade sells it completely. He takes everything seriously. Like, the dogs are a serious threat, but Matt Murdock in his head is sort of thinking, like, oh, these are irradiated dogs, that's kind of goofy. You know, like, he draws attention to the fact that he's being goofy, but still takes himself seriously. That's what I think is what I like so much about this book tonally.
Dan, I wonder if we're not getting a lot closer now to Daredevil finally figuring out who the mastermind is behind everything, because you finally see his lair at the beginning of this, right? Like we kind of get him in silhouette. There's dialogue from whoever it is that's doing this, and I don't think we have really any clues yet as to who exactly it is and what exactly is going on. But this is,
I have a theory, but I don't know if it'll ever come into fruition, because there's the way that the character is drawn and presented, plus one of the little dialogue things that Matt says later on with the first letter of the character that I think it might be.
I didn't catch on to that. We should talk about that after we turn the camera off.
Okay.
But that's really interesting. I didn't. Yeah, don't tell me what you think that is, because if it's really in the book, we don't want to give it away.
Okay. Sure.
But yeah, I think 24 issues in, he's been so careful and methodical not to tell us what exactly is going on and making us think we know what's happening. Where so often it's like we think it's smaller than it is, and then it's a little bit bigger, and then it's a little bit bigger, and at the point where I thought my mind was blown because the Spot was behind everything, and he's still just a cog. He's a bigger cog with some other little cogs inside of him, but then like even bigger than that, it's like we're building kind of kind of dolls inside of dolls, It's really interesting. So I feel like we've got to be closer to the end right now of at least that. I don't mean the end of his run, but I feel like we've got to be the end of that, toward the end of that whole mastermind thing. I'd say I predict 5-6 issues we're going to be to the end of that.
That would be nice. I mean, not that I'm getting bored with this or anything either.
No.
At the same time, like, if you went on with this for 20 issues more, and you did it as well as this stuff, I'd be completely satisfied. But one of the things you mentioned about, like, keeping us off guard and that sort of thing, like, I think it's really a great exercise Wade's doing here of getting us into Matt Murdock's head, where, like, Matt Murdock's such an overconfident guy and thinks he knows what he's jumping into whenever he goes into something, and he really doesn't. And he always figures out that he's in way too over his head, and that's the self-destructiveness of the character.
Yeah.
And I think he's doing it putting us in the character's head very well through the plotting in that way. We're sort of thinking like Matt Murdock. It's such a great book. I could talk about it all day. This is my favorite thing being published, in case you didn't notice by me talking it up so hard.
Dan, you got one more, don't you?
I do. I have also another Mark Waid book that I really enjoy. This is Indestructible Hulk number 5 by Waid and Lionel Yu on art. And this was a pretty good issue. We have the Hulk continuing to fight Atuma, who is a Namor villain. I think he's actually his arch nemesis. I don't know much about Namor. I know Atuma from the Marvel Ultimate Alliance video game. That's about it. So it was kind of cool to see him here. We have these pretty cool parallels with Hulk. Entering another culture, and they're sort of a warrior culture, and they appreciate the Hulk for who he is as a warrior, rather than like, you know, that he's a mindless beast and all that sort of thing. It's the dynamic being flipped, where like the people don't like Banner because he's weak and emaciated looking, and they find him sort of repulsive, where the Hulk, they find him to be inspiring and all of that sort of thing, making the Hulk into sort of a superhero here, which I thought was a refreshing sort of thing. When, you know, in the comics all the time, it's just like, you know, Banner not wanting to be Hulk and that sort of thing. It's difficult for people to invest in a book, I think, a lot of the time, where I think Joss Whedon had said this about the Hulk solo movie, where you spend the whole movie with a guy who's trying to prevent the thing from happening that people went to the movie to see.
Oh, that's
great. Wade's doing a great job of not doing that here, where we have a valid reason for the Hulk being the Hulk. Banner, he has people like punching him in the face, like provoking people to make him angry and things. It's a lot of fun. This issue specifically wasn't all that psychological, but you can see in the previous issues he's touched on that a little bit. So I think we're going to get some of that here. There's a little bit of political espionage that comes in at the end, because this is a spy book too at the same time. It's a really interesting genre mashup, and if you like the Hulk, I'd recommend it. It's a good book.
And the last thing we've got, Dan, is all-new X-Men #9, because we can't do this show without X-Men right now. Man, there's
like, you know, more than two or less than two Bendis
books. Man, it seems like X-Men every week right now, and you know what? I'm totally okay with that, because it's so good.
Oh, yeah, I love this issue just as much as the previous ones.
I gotta say, I'm always really impressed when somebody can open an X-Men book with Danger Room, and I don't know it's Danger Room, because like that scene's been done 1,000 times, and it's done in Star Trek a lot too, where it's like, oh, it's really the holodeck, okay. And we do this all the time in X-Men, right? Where we're like, there's a big, giant, epic battle, and oh, it's in the Danger Room. It's like a quarter of the issue here, and yeah, I keep thinking, and you know, there's this 2-page spread where it's like Sentinels, and I'm like, ooh, yay, Sentinels! Oh, it's Danger Room. But like, I wasn't disappointed either, because, well, partly because it was played up so much for comedy. I really enjoyed the whole dialogue of hey, this is a lot more elaborate than our Danger Room. We just have a few hoops with some fire or something. Like, I was like, that was fantastic.
That's how the old Danger Room used to look. Whenever I go back and read those old X-Men comics, I'm just like, this is so goofily awesome.
I really loved, I forget who it was who said it. Cyclops. So in the present day, everything's a commercial?
Yeah, I thought that was really funny too. Bendis is continuing to write some of the best dialogue of people coming from the 60s and putting them in now. Like, not that they're like distinctly 60s people, because these characters don't age, and you have
He's having to juggle that so hard. Like that's such a hard line to walk. Like, how much time is really passed? You know what I mean? And like, we can't let as much time pass as really has, or all these people would be dead or really, really old. And so it's kind of like, I feel like the Marvel universe is becoming a lot less like the real world all the time, because since you don't really know how much like things change, things technically have to change a lot faster, right? Or it's like you know, when Jean Grey was a lot younger, they didn't have that technology for the Danger Room, and everything didn't look like a commercial. You didn't have all that technology, but like you would have, and so it's really interesting. The tight walk he has to walk with that.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting about this issue when they were fighting in the Danger Room was I hadn't really noticed before this how, because I'm not as well versed in those early X-Men comics as some other people might be. Yeah. Like the scene specifically that they were taken from in the first issue, where Beast plucked them out and brought them into the present. I know that's from an X-Men issue, but I didn't realize how early it was. Where like the kids in here don't really know who the leader of the team is. They don't know what their roles on the team are. Jean Grey got her powers much earlier than she was supposed to, so that's affecting her majorly psychologically. Bendis is finding so many new places to take these characters that we had thought had already been played out before. I really like where he's going, not only in this book with Scott Summers, but the Uncanny one, too, where I think it's going to be the Darth Vader thing where he fell to the dark side and he gets redeemed at the end. But it's being seeded very early here, and I like that about it, where you can see the good in him, but everyone else has it's almost the opposite of the Luke Skywalker thing, where everyone's or it's almost the Anakin thing exactly, where they're expecting him to be evil. Or at least the audience was expecting him to be evil.
Yeah, though, I kind of looked at it slightly differently from you because because the way I'm reading it, and I know you and I have kind of different feelings about Cyclops, because we read AVX differently and stuff like that. The way I'm seeing young Cyclops here is like. I feel like Bendis is playing with this idea of these characters, the older versions and the younger versions, not exactly being the same people, and that as time goes on, when they both know each other, they separate farther and farther, where they become entirely different people. What's very interesting is that Cyclops and Jean Grey are the only two that don't get to interact with their present-day selves at all. So the other Cyclops is off having his revolution. By the way, everything Beast says about how scared he is about the revolution is really interesting. I just want to touch that there real quick. I just lost.
I did think all that stuff was really interesting.
I'm sorry. One second. I just lost your face.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. Hold on. There you go. It's just all of a sudden you disappeared.
It's weird.
Sorry, I don't know what that was about. What I was going to say is, it's really interesting that those two are both don't get to know each other, because Jean Grey is like, who was I? Who am I going to become? Everybody else gets to see what they're going to turn into, but all I know is I died. And then Cyclops, it's almost as if the more people, this is how I'm reading it, it's almost as if the more people tell him that he's going to grow up and become this evil person, he's doing more kind of questionable things that version wouldn't have done in the past, and he's got that whole thing here where he doesn't tell anybody about Mystique, and then everybody's like, you should have, Kitty Pryde, and I really think, by the way, it's really interesting seeing Kitty Pryde have to lead all of these people that are supposed to be so much older than her. Professor Kitty Pryde saying, "Hey, you should have told us about her." And Cyclops doesn't care. He's not even kind of remorseful. He's like, "No, I don't have to tell you anything. You people don't even trust me." And I think it's a little bit more like he's maybe, you could be right, but I kind of think maybe he's turning more into the older Cyclops faster because he knows about it.
I agree with you to some degree. I mean, the interaction thing, Cyclops had met his older self before. They didn't have a long conversation.
Yeah.
It was just in issue 3. And then Jean Grey knows pretty much everything about her life because she had that flashback where she had touched Beast and seen everything. So she doesn't know just that she died. She knows everything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I feel like knowing it and actually getting to know those people personally is a different kind of thing. Like I feel like the two Beasts get to know each other personally, and the two Icemen get to know each other personally. I mean, I think that changes the dynamic a lot as to who they become.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think it's sort of an interesting thing, like you had said, where Jean Grey doesn't meet herself. She knows all of the things that she's done, and Jean Grey, generally, from what I know, I mean, I haven't read every X-Men comic in the world, and there's probably some 90s comics where she, does something really evil of her own will.
Yeah, we can't all be Bendis and read it all.
Right, but, as a character, before she was affected by the Phoenix Force, Jean Grey was generally a good person, and she's becoming more evil, too, a little bit.
That's a good point.
The Cyclops thing to me came off as a little bit more of a rebellious thing, where he's like, well, if everyone just expects me to be like this, well, screw you guys, I'm not going to trust you if you don't trust me, and that's the way I sort of looked at it. Okay. Not that he was, being evil, you know what I mean, or, not remorseful, because, in the fight with them, he's the first person to, get scared when Jean gets hurt or something like that.
That's true, but I feel like he is kind of vindictive against all of the present-day X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wonder where that's going to lead. But again, I mean, it's all speculation. We just got to see where he's taking it. But
right, exactly.
It's really
and the
complex.
fact that we're able to talk that much about it is a credit to, you know, how layered and great this story has been so far in his character work. That's definitely the strong suit.
I think where we're at with Cyclops is he is terrified that he's going to turn into that guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's going to make inconsistent choices because of that. That only makes sense. That's what he should do. So, I mean, that's the way he should be written.
And that's a very apt sort of parallel with what it's like to be a teenager, where you have, you know, your parents' expectations of you, society's expectations of you, your teachers, everyone's expectations of you, and you sort of trying to gauge that with who you want to be. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the most permeating ideas of the interaction these young X-Men have had with each other and all that sort of thing.
And don't get me wrong, Cyclops is the guy, young Cyclops is the guy I feel for the most in this book, because he's the one that was treated the most unfairly for being brought to the present. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, yeah, we'd love to see him, or at least from Beast's perspective, you know, we'd love to see him grow up and not do what Scott Summers did recently in AVX. But just to, you know, take that kid and go, hey, this is who you're going to be, and then to have everybody around him just expect that's what he's going to turn into. Like, that's really rough on that guy.
Yeah, it is. It'll be interesting to see, like we were talking about what side he's going to come out of, because that'll sort of test his resilience as a person, you know, becoming something good versus something evil in the face of all those expectations. That's the most interesting thing about this. And, like, Cyclops hasn't even been, I don't think, really the main character of this.
He hasn't been.
He's had some issues that have focused on him, like the one where he goes to the bank and opens the safe box and that sort of thing.
Right.
But this has mainly been Jean's book, from what I've experienced so far. We've had some standalone issues with each of the characters, but Jean's story has been sort of permeating the entire thing. And it's interesting that Bendis is able to get that much depth within the little scenes we've got in here. He's doing a great job of balancing all the characters so well.
And of course,
say enough good things about it.
Yeah, and of course, really good reveal at the end that I'm sure is going to set us up for a fantastic issue 10.
Oh yeah, definitely. I wasn't really familiar with the character that shows up at the end, so the reveal there was a little bit lost on me. But I'm sure for X-Men fans that was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, the big reveal right at the last page, of course, is a big deal for everybody. Yeah, and something you've been kind of waiting to see happen. Anyway, I think that's everything for us, isn't it, Dan?
It is.
So lots of books. This once again was really long. We had so much to review, but I really hope everybody enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for watching the Comic Book Vault, and we will try really hard to be back with you next Friday. I'm going to be taking somewhat of a hiatus next week, so I'm going to be on vacation. I will be back by Friday. We probably will be doing new acquisitions that day. I don't want to promise anything, but that will be like the only video that goes up besides Spawn Year all next week. But anyway, we're going to try to bring you one next week. And if there's anything you'd ever like to send us to review on the Comic Book Vault, feel free to send that to our P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. Dan, thanks for being with me, as always.
No problem. Thanks for having me, as always.
It was a lot of fun, and we'll see everybody later. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Dan.
And happy reading.